Hey, thanks for tuning in to this episode of While We Were Working. It's the show that helps you become a better people leader. This week, we are talking about two topics that might come up in your business this year. You just never know. This episode, we're talking about PTO trends, and more specifically, Unlimited PTO trends. And there's an article that breaks down 3 trends that you need to know. The other piece in Consultants Corner is an actual question that we got in our consulting history over the years. It has helped. One of my employees is in jail, and I'm not sure what I can do. Stick around and you'll get our expert advice. And as always, if you'd love to connect with us, reach out to us at jumpstart-hr.com, where you can sign up for a free 15-minute consultation for employee handbooks, recruitment, payroll support, HR outsourcing, you name it, we're here to support you. As always, I'm joined by my awesome co-host, Sommer Ketron. So, Sommer, how's it going?
Hey, Joey. It's good. You know, it had been quite a bit rainy over here in San Diego, but we're trying to dry out and make the best of it, get ready for spring. But how are things with you over there?
You know, not too bad. I was telling you before the show that this is the time of year where things like to break down in my house. It gotta have repair. Folks come and take a look at it. But thankfully, we're in a good spot. We were able to save some money. So other than that, things are going well. Let's go ahead and jump into our segment While We Were Working. And this is the segment where we talk about the trends and topics that you need to know, but you may have missed because you were too busy working. So let's talk about this HR Dive article here. It says 3 charts breaking down unlimited PTO trends. Now, for those of you who are not in the loop, unlimited PTO doesn't mean that you go to your job, you clock in, and then you take PTO for the rest of your time you're working. It literally just means that your company doesn't have a reserve or a limit or a bank of time that you can take on PTO, whether that be for personal matters or sometimes even for health matters. But Sommer, what stood out to you in this article from HR Dive?
Thanks, Joey, and thanks everyone for listening. I think I love it when there is really easy to consume information, especially on a topic such as unlimited PTO, which is something we've talked about many times on the pod, and it's a regular topic with our clients. So I felt like, gosh, what a great article to talk about. And it really focuses on 3 trends as it comes down to unlimited PTO. And I think it gives us, Joey, a little bit of an update from what we've been following and working on in this space for the last several years. It's kind of now a look, right, in terms of survey data to better understand, like, where have we been, right? And where are we now? And the first chart in this article talks about what paid leave systems do employees offer. And of course, it was a little bit surprising to me, but when you refer to the chart, despite unlimited PTO being a really popular topic for the last few years, few employers say they actually offer unlimited PTO. And to kind of break that down, approximately half of the companies maintain a traditional, like, separate vacation and personal time and sick time bank. Roughly 41 offer a paid time off bank, which would be those items I just mentioned, but all bundled together. And approximately 9% offer unlimited PTO. And that was so surprising considering it's been such a big topic for the clients that we've worked with. But what are your thoughts immediately on those numbers, Joey?
Well, numbers like this are always interesting. Anytime you have research, the question is, how many people were surveyed and from what industries or backgrounds? And so I don't quite know the methodology around the survey, but if I were to take the numbers at face value and process it and make some ideas around it, I would say that maybe the idea of unlimited PTO is aspirational for more employees than it is for employers. And there's might be a disconnect between what people want and what they're getting. But then also, there's a chart later on that kind of talks to the barriers to that PTO being unlimited, and the fact that there are just certain challenges that prevent people from getting to a yes with unlimited PTO. And Jumpstart can help you with those challenges, but and we offer unlimited PTO ourselves. But it's very interesting. It reminds me that my view of the world or your view of the world is just one view, and there are a lot of people out there who might think differently about unlimited PTO.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that wholly. And, I think if I was to take this information that we're looking at, approximately 9% of employers offering unlimited PTO, I think it goes back to support some of what we've actually had conversations about previously, which is if you are an organization who is willing to offer and able to offer an unlimited PTO plan and enhance your benefit package for your team members, I think this is just another indication that you can set yourself in a category that few companies are in, right? To have that competitive advantage. So I think that's definitely one thing that I took away from this, but I was surprised that there weren't more. There was only approximately 266 employers surveyed, and this was October of 2023, so a very small sample. But I think it's still telling that there's not as many adopting this as I had initially expected to see in those numbers.
Yeah, yeah, and thanks for that. The 266 employers. It makes me wonder, the size, the industry, whether they're brick and mortar or they're folks who are remote. But one of the interesting things on this first chart about paid leave systems that I that keeps me up at night is that half of these groups are tracking separate vacation and personal and or sick time. And to me, I mean, Summer, you've been in HR for quite a time. I've been in HR for quite a time. And what's one of the things that hangs up employers the most is tracking appropriately and messing messing that up, right? So let's say somewhere during the pandemic, company allowed people to move to another state, and that state has different paid time off requirement, probably more stringent. And if that company is not tracking the appropriate sick time or offering the appropriate sick time, it could get them in a bit of a pickle. So, it's crazy that 50% of the country is still doing this unblended sort of approach, let alone not doing unlimited PTO. But it's just a reminder that there's an opportunity for you who are tuning in to take a look at your policies, see if you're tracking those leave balances correctly. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on that one right there.
Yeah, I think you make some really great points. And when I reflect back on the conversations that I've had with clients who have moved in that direction, there's a variety of reasons that they decide to do so. But certainly the ease on the compliance front is one that's very important, as well as um, not having to accrue for the liability of cashing out vacation or that combined PTO in states where that's a requirement. So it's like, okay, well, we're winning on the compliance front. Team members are winning in terms of having unlimited time off. But when we also look at one of the charts, Joey, that's in this article that I really did like. It sent a very clear message that even the organizations who have moved to this unlimited PTO model have primarily started offering it in just the last 4 years. So yes, the numbers are small, but it's also relatively new. So I think if I was to get out my HR crystal ball, I think we give it time. And I think we will start to see a larger number adopt this. It's very early on for this type of concept.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Summer. I think with the idea of unlimited PTO being relatively new, and then even 4-day work weeks being even newer, I think both of those trends are things that will only grow in time with respect to who's utilizing them and how. So I'm definitely with you there.
It makes me think of, Joey? It makes
What's
me
that?
think of like just a number of years ago. If I was like, hey, Joey, everybody's going to work from home, you would have been like, I mean, you would have embraced it. But I think, most companies would have been like, that's too far of a stretch. Like we're like, maybe a day, maybe two. And to me, it feels a little bit the same, right? That like unlimited PTO for a lot of organizations feels like such a big stretch, like a huge departure.
Yeah.
But, let's give it some time. And I think, again, my opinion is I think after companies start to compete fiercely for talent again and need to find ways to up their offer, perhaps not on a salary front, something like unlimited PTO can be the thing that sets one offer apart from the other. So I think it's definitely worth considering.
Yeah, worth considering, and it's worth us taking a look at those PTO hurdles here in this third chart. The main one at 52% being a heavy workload, and then one of the smaller ones there is inadequate staffing or lack of manager support, lack of leadership support. These are all items that are symptoms of other issues. And so the idea of, for example, having a heavy workload and that be the reason why you wouldn't be able to offer unlimited PTO, maybe the idea of looking at workloads and why they're so heavy, and if that heavy workload is having an impact on your employee experience, their engagement, their productivity, because just because the workload is high doesn't mean the productivity is high. It just means that you've given your employees a lot of work. So just take a look at your workloads and see if they're balanced. Another one here is that there's inadequate staffing. One of the things that is essential for an unlimited PTO is some sort of coverage system, backup system. You either share tasks with a colleague or just say, you know what, these things can get picked up when I come back. So looking at your staffing models to understand if you really have a team in place that can win through not only unlimited PTO, but just win because they're set up for success in general. I think this last chart highlights more systemic things to fix rather than their true reasons why unlimited PTO wouldn't work.
What a great segue, Joey. Thanks for setting that up, because when I think about, really getting to the root of, how to solve for some of the challenges that may present themselves, that's what we do here at Jumpstart. We work with companies who have a goal, or they have an idea, or they have a problem, and they're not quite sure how to navigate it. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, gosh, I could use a little bit or maybe a lot of bit of expert advice, your friends here at Jumpstart would love to chat with you. And you can reach out to us via email if you want to, hello@jumpstart-hr.com. You can find us on our website. And of course, reach out to us and we'll set up a quick 15-minute phone call and see what we can do for you.
it. That's it. Okay, so let's switch gears and jump to the segment of the show called Consultants Corner. And Consultants Corner is where we chat about our views from the trenches, experiences we've had, and we respond to questions that come in either from our clients or our listener and viewer community, or things that we see on the internet that we think, oh, we should talk about that on the show. So this week we've got the question that came up, and I've gotta hear about how this came up, Summer. But it says, help, one of my employees is in jail. I have looked all over the internet and I'm not sure what I'm allowed to do. So first of all, just thinking, there are a lot of questions that I might have. What happens if someone's in jail? But Summer, could you give some context to, this question, or what people should think about and consider? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I know you got a thought out plan, but also I'm curious: is this something that you see often? Let me know.
Oh man, Joey. It's one of those situations that I don't think most companies are prepared for, and definitely should be, because this is not the first time that I've seen this happen. I think it's probably the third or fourth time that I've seen it happen. And, I think as an organization, we need to have a plan, and not be trying to figure it out when something like this occurs, because it is so time sensitive. And then, we'll talk a little bit about this specific situation, but I also wanted to talk about variations of it that companies might see. And in this situation, there was a team member who was in jail and actually called the employer to let them know, hey, like I'm being held. I'm hoping to be released on bond, but just FYI, like I'm not going to be able to make it to work. And then of course the client was like, what do I do? Help us out here. So there's a lot to kind of talk through, but I've had different versions of a similar situation that I think would be kind of cool to talk about. But have you ever run into that situation, Joey?
I have not run into that situation on the employer side. I'll tell you though, I had an interesting experience in traffic court. Yeah, this is many years ago, way before the company was started, but many years ago, I was in a town for traffic court, and I don't even live in the state, but I was there for an event, and the police stopped me, and so I was like, well, I don't think I did anything wrong. Some of those to court. That's neither here nor there. But before my time to stand in front of the judge and talk about my case, I noticed that many people were opting, instead of paying fine, to spend a weekend in jail or a couple days in jail. And I just was thinking to myself, even then, that feels like such a disruption to your life if you have a job where you're willingly going into jail and disrupting life outside of jail. So it made me think about, well, how often does this happen? It doesn't come up much on my end, but it struck me. It definitely struck me as a part of life and a part of the world that, fortunately, I don't see too often. But just because I don't see it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And so I'm even glad that we're talking about this today, because it's like a full circle moment. Like, how do we help people navigate the situation where, I've seen the inside of a jail, but that's another story, because I was in a band and we played this. But like, I've only seen jail life on TV, right? And
Yeah.
so, you think about how disruptive it feels to the person experiencing it. but what about to their employer? What about to their former coworkers? What about to customers? So on and so forth. So long-winded rabbit trail story short, I haven't seen this in my consulting years or in my corporate years, but it sounds like you have. And so this is really your spotlight to talk. What's
No,
next? Because I don't wanna overreach.
no, I think it's a topic that's definitely worth chatting about because I think that we can help a lot of people who encounter this type of situation. And I think the first thing, I'd suggest is as an employer, to try to remove the, kind of the stigma or the emotional aspect tied to, oh my gosh, like this employee's in jail, and completely change your entire view of that person. Because first and foremost, there's a big difference between being accused and being convicted, right? So I think just because somebody's been jailed doesn't necessarily mean that they're convicted, right? So they may be awaiting bond. But when it comes to kind of the logistics of well, how do we navigate their employment? I think it depends on a wide variety of things, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. And the first one would be, number one, making sure that from an employer's standpoint, you understand your legal requirements and options that are specific to your state and your city, right? The ones that apply to this team member specifically, because they do vary too widely for us to say, just do this. So first, it's understanding that. But beyond, once you get past that, you have to ask yourself, what are our options, right? And as an employer, certainly an option to consider would be allowing this individual a leave of absence if it's anticipated that there's going to be some sort of update that may allow this individual to return to work soon, right? So in a case of somebody who's just awaiting bail and expected to go to court soon and find out the outcome, it might be allowing them to use any PTO that they have, and then potentially putting them on a paid leave. And if you don't have policies written, Joey, having policies like an unpaid leave or discretionary leave would be such a great option in this case. And it may allow the team member to take care of what they need to and get back to work. And then everybody wins, right?
Yeah,
But,
I think it's a conversation of keeping the dignity of the employee, keeping the continuity of your business, and remaining legally compliant.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of aspects to this conversation that we have to tackle, and having policies in place ahead of time is a great
Mhm.
way to make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's before something like this comes up.
Yep. And every situation is different. So I would definitely encourage those that are listening and kind of thinking about this to make sure that they're evaluating this on a case by case basis. Because a different scenario that I've actually run into is team member doesn't show up to work. Another shift goes by, team member doesn't show up to work. So, manager, other teammates start calling around and finds out, oh no, this team member's actually in jail and they won't be showing up to work for probably some time. The problem here is this is hearsay at this point, right? We don't have any concrete evidence to know this for certain. However, if you have a no call, no show policy in your handbook and you haven't heard from this individual, then it is absolutely safe to proceed with termination so long as it's consistent with your practice and your policy. And in the case that I was mentioning, that's exactly what happened. When the individual was released, of course, they reached out, said, hey, really sorry. I'd love to come back if you'll have me. They had a discussion and reinstated the team member because they felt like that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, guys, I could think of, you know, questions that might come up after this, right? And we didn't script this, but follow-up questions might be like, what should we do if a person has to, stand trial, or what should we do if we let's start with that. What do you think we should do if a person has to stand trial? Do you offer intermittent leave? Do they take PTO? Not to put you on the spot, but I can imagine that being a follow-up.
Yeah, I think it goes back to one of the specific items I mentioned previously, and I think you do have to take it on a situation by situation basis, because to me, it would depend on the nature of the crime that they're going to trial for. And I think, the organization would really need to have a good understanding of, is this trial going to significantly impact their ability to do their job? Did they violate any company policies? Is the crime against the company? Right? So these are all things that I think would weigh into the decision making. And of course, taking into first consideration the compliance requirements on a state by state basis. But, I think if there is an option for the team member to continue to work, then truly that is the best outcome for everybody. So I think if we can get there, that should be the goal. But I also understand that some organizations have specific needs, specific requirements, depending on what the crime is and the demographics of the employees and the work that they do. There may be a legitimate reason to say, like, we're not comfortable continuing with employment, and then evaluating different options that make sense at the time.
Okay. All right. Well, there are probably other questions that could come up, and I think the best place to do that is to check out our website, which is jumpstart-hr.com, and schedule a 15-minute chat with us to see how we can help your business. In addition, we offer prepaid HR services. So if you have a quick project that needs tackled, you can prepay for 10 hours of our services on our website, jumpstart-hr.com/shop. And that'll allow you to see the prepaid option as well as other offerings that we have: recruitment, employee handbook creation, employee handbook review, so on and so forth. So we'll tie a bow on this episode here, and thank you so much for tuning in. Sommer, as always, thanks for your expert insights. Really continue to enjoy doing these shows together. And if you liked it, leave a 5-star review. Make sure you subscribe, share with your friends. And until next time, have a great week.
Thanks, Joey. Thank you, everyone.